The two brothers suspected of attacking the offices of Charlie Hebdo have reportedly been killed and their hostage freed. Gunshots have been heard at the Demartin & factory, where brothers Said and Cherfchi were holed up with a 26-year-old male hostage. According to media reports in France, the brothers have been killed and their hostage freed. Sky's Ian Woods, who is on the scene, said, "There were several bursts of gunfire that lasted about 10 seconds. Since then we've heard 4 or 5 explosions. After this there was around a minute of silence, followed by further explosions." Woods added, "Clearly this is the end game of this operation." Several ambulances have been seen traveling at speed in the area of the factory complex following the explosions, close to the outskirts of Paris and near to Charles de Gaulle Airport. It came as 6 explosions were heard at the Paris supermarket, where at least 6 hostages have been held by gunmen. Reports say the hostages have been freed. The Chi brothers had been surrounded at the print works by Special Forces officers for several hours. They took refuge in the building with a hostage after being forced off the road into Paris by a police roadblock. Earlier in the day they broke cover from an area northeast of the capital and stole a car, before heading towards Paris. A police chase took place and they were forced off the road close to the city's outskirts.
French police have surrounded a building in a northern town where 2 men suspected of the Charlie Hebdo massacre are said to have a hostage. Shots have been fired and several people are said to have been wounded in Demartin-en-Gaulle, 35 kilometers, 22 miles, from Paris. The development comes nearly 48 hours after the attack on the magazine's office, when 12 people were shot dead. The heavily armed gunmen fled Paris by car after the attack. The attackers, who shouted Islamist slogans, are believed to have been angered by the satirical magazine's irreverent depictions of the Prophet Muhammad. They are said to have shouted "We are Al-Qaeda, Yemen," an apparent reference to the Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula group, AQUP. In the US, a senior official has told reporters that one of the 2 brothers alleged to have carried out the attack, Said Kouachi, spent a few months training in Yemen with the group.
Ago there was a burst of gunfire which lasted, I would say, about 10 seconds. Because our camera lenses are better and more accurate than my eyesight from this sort of distance. But let's just return to what we saw and heard a few moments ago, and we'll play those pictures for you. Right, you're coming back to us here outside Denmark now, and clearly this is now the end game being played out, because you can hear a massive amount of gunfire has just begun in the last 10 seconds or so. I'm just listening to see whether it is continuing, but it appears to have stopped momentarily. But about 10 seconds ago there was a burst of gunfire which lasted, I would say, about 10 seconds. See if we can play that tape back to you. We're also getting explosions now. Get me on the lip mic. Can you get me the lip mic set up? Moss, get the lip mic set up. I need to go in there and just watch the pictures.
It takes a bit of doing, Ian.
Does it? Okay. Okay, let me talk then. Put the mic up. Okay, well, you can hear the gunfire. That was a replay of what was played out.
The dramatic scenes just a few moments ago on the northern outskirts of Damartin, near that business park where the two Kouachi brothers have been holed up since early this morning in that CTD printing plant. And Ian Wood's describing that scene for you. And Ian, apart from the gunfire, you had seen a lot of balaclava-clad special police going in the minutes leading up to that. So clearly they were building up, putting people in position. Then explosions. Would it be fair to say that they could have been maybe stun grenades that allowed them entry into the building?
Yeah, I think that an expert would probably have to identify those that's got more experience in these matters than I have. But you could see on the screen there were certainly large flashes and a burst of flame, as well as the noise. And all of the attention this morning when we got to the scene near to the forest where most of the activity had been taking place yesterday in terms of the searching for these two men. There had been a police presence maintained there overnight. There had been searches carrying on in the area, but shortly after dawn broke this morning came the news that the scene had changed completely in terms of where the focus of the search was now. And a lot of those vehicles then upped and moved en masse southwest back towards Paris. So a lot of the counter-terrorism police that we saw wearing balaclavas yesterday, carrying out house-to-house operations, have all now moved to this area and obviously concentrating their resources over at that printer factory where we believe the two gunmen are now holed up. The media also, of course, gave chase as well, and there was a scene almost where we, I think, give the impression that a car chase was underway on the A2 connecting these two areas, but that was simply everybody moving down to change the location. And as I look around now, there are still, as I say, sirens heard locally and warnings for people to stay indoors. But unfortunately, we can't bring you any information directly from here as to what might be happening over there. But it is interesting that the situation appears to have calmed down in terms of the number of helicopters, and I just wonder whether if Francois Hollande is preparing to make some sort of public address, whether that would suggest that there is some sort of finality to the situation. I don't know, that is pure speculation, but it is hard to imagine that the leader of the country, the president, would be wanting to make a public statement in the middle of an ongoing operation like this. I don't know what other experts might think.
At 11:30 a.m. on Wednesday, Saïd and Sherif Kouachi arrive at Rue Nicolas Apperet in a black Citroën. Armed with AK-47s and a grenade launcher, they asked two maintenance workers at number 6 for directions. One of them, Frédéric Boisseau, is shot dead. The gunmen then enter the offices of the media company Bayeux at number 6, but are told that Charlie Hebdo is next door. Well, at the Charlie Hebdo front door, they force cartoonist Corinne Ray and her young daughter to let them in using a key code. They then go to the second floor, where the magazine's first editorial meeting of the year is taking place, and they shoot a police protection officer, Frank Brun-Solaro, who's standing guard outside. The gunmen ask for the editor, Stéphane Charbonnier, who they shoot dead. They then open fire, killing cartoonists Georges Walensky, Jean Cabot, Bernard Velalac and Philippe Honneur, as well as deputy editor Bernard Marie. They also shoot dead a columnist, Elsa Caillot, a copy editor, Mustafa Oura, and a guest who was visiting the offices, Michel Reynaud. 10 other people are injured. After 5 minutes inside, the gunmen flee the building and drive off at 11:35 a.m. Now, around the corner in the Allée Verte, they're confronted by police. They exchange fire, leaving a police car riddled with bullets here on Boulevard Richard-Lenoir. The gunmen then drive off again. On the other side of the boulevard, they exchange fire with 3 more police officers. Officer Ahmed Mehabet is wounded, and the gunmen, now on foot, shoot him dead on the pavement. They get back into the Citroën and then drive off. It's now 11:50 a.m. The getaway car crashes 3 miles north on Rue de Meaux. They then carjack a white Renault Clio and drive north in the direction of Porte de Pantin, one of the main routes out.
One of the really striking things about the attack on the Charlie Hebdo magazine is that it has been conducted clearly by people who are both military professionals and, I'll wager, have combat experience. They have killed in the past. Now, this is very, very different to the sort of self-starter, so-called lone wolf attacks that we've seen on the streets of London with the murder of Lee Rigby using kitchen utensils, or indeed recent attacks inside France where people have used vehicles as weapons. This is using old-fashioned infantry tactics to cause mayhem on the streets of Paris. Now, let's have a look at the first piece of video footage. Now, I'm going to stop it just before the firing starts. The two individuals who've exited this car these are the two terrorists, two of the three terrorists. They are moving in what's called mutual support of one another. They're spaced out and they're slightly staggered. One is further forward than the other. But both of them are mounting their weapons correctly. They're taking aim down the sights. They're not spraying. They're not firing from the hip because their target further down the street is a policeman. Each one of those shots we just heard has been individually fired off. It's been carefully pulled. That's called an aimed shot. It's not fired on automatic. Again, a sign of professional training. In the heat of the moment, less well-trained people start firing on automatic. They get frightened. They get excited. Their victim is a policeman. We blurred out the image of him. He's lying on the ground. He's got his hands in the air. Now, the two gunmen approach, and this is the striking thing. They, again, are moving in mutual support. Now, we paused it at the point just before the gunman in the far ground actually executes. He murders the policeman on the street, but he does so without breaking stride. He does it at a jog, with a familiarity with his weapon and a coldness that, to me at any rate, indicates that this man has killed before. They then move on down the street, check that they're safe, and then start moving back to their vehicle. Now there, just in the background, this gunman is making some hand signals saying, that's it, wrap up. That's a signal that in broad terms means regroup, get back to the vehicle. He's signalling to the guy behind him, job done, let's get out of here. Now in this second video we see a similar level of mutual support, but this is an infantry manoeuvre known as moving in bounds, when people leapfrog one another. So there we see a gunman at the junction in the street there. He's gone forward. We know from other camera angles that we've looked at that this actually shows the two gunmen moving forward and opening fire at a police car. But at this moment, we have one gunman forward and one is just emerging from next to his car. Now, the first gunman opened fires and then is joined by the second one. The second one is bounding forward in that standard infantry way. And then they both withdraw, again facing towards where they perceive the threat may come, and they go back to their car. And the chilling moment here is that back at their car, they're extremely calm. Again, that would indicate that they're not overexcited, that they've got control of their adrenal reactions in this fight or flight environment, and that they're pretty relaxed. They've done this before. When people are learning to use weapons, especially automatic weapons, they tend to jump around. They've got a big kick and they're a bit frightening. People close their eyes, and so the bullets tend to spray all over the place. It takes a degree of training and a degree of experience to fire accurate shots when under pressure, let alone when faced with combat. In this case, we see a police vehicle that's got a very tight grouping of probably shots fired on double tap. That's when two shots are pulled off almost simultaneously, but after careful aiming. They're all in a very similar area. Now, this may have been at relatively short range, but with an AK-47 that tends to leap in the air, this is a clear indication that somebody has proper weapons training and is confident.